Hello and welcome to another segment of Stopping Socialism TV. I am Donald Kendal, joined today by Chris Talgo. He is a senior editor at the Heartland Institute, and he's also a contributor to the Stopping Socialism project. Chris, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Donnie?
Fantastic. So I'm bringing you on because I want to talk about one of your op-eds that you recently had published in Town Hall, which is titled, Based on the Left's Definition of Racism, Vaccine Mandates Are Racist. So you start off the article saying, according to many on the left, a policy is considered racist if it has a disparate impact on a protected minority group. For instance, many on the left accuse states' voter ID requirements as being racist because they claim these laws have a disparate impact on minority groups, including blacks and Hispanics. So, how does the left justify vaccine mandates? So, first off, I love the premise of this piece. I so often think about the kind of hypocrisy that's found in a lot of the positions held, on by people on the left, and I think that you came up with a prime example of one of these contradictions. So let's start off with the supposed definition of a racist policy. So you wrote, according to many on the left, a policy is considered racist if it has a disproportionate impact on a protected minority group. So, like you said, this kind of came up recently in the debates surrounding voter ID laws, but care to expand on this a bit?
Yeah. So this goes back a couple of decades, and one of the things that the left argues is whether the disparate impact is intentional or unintentional.
Mm,
The policy is racist. So even if the policy is not meant to 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 affect the protected minority group. If it does, the left considers that policy, that law, that act racist. So in the New York case, you've got a vaccine mandate which is going to be enforced in early September. It's in place now, but they're not actually going through with the fines and all that.
mhm.
But according to their own definition of a racist policy is one that disproportionately impacts a protected minority group. And we know that in the city of New York, only about 30% of African Americans have been vaccinated. So, therefore, this vaccine mandate is going to overwhelmingly, disproportionately, uh, adversely impact the African American community in New York City.
Yeah, I mean, so let's take this like step by step. Like we could probably argue against this accusation, this definition that you brought up. We could argue against that accusation of racism of that policy all day long if we wanted to. But for the sake of argument, let's take them at their word. If it's racist for a policy that disproportionately affects minority groups, then we have to apply that same logic to any public policy, right? I
Right.
mean, let's be consistent about it. So let's talk about these so-called vaccine mandate ideas. So they've been floated around, different cities, different states, different countries have talked about various versions of these vaccine passport, vaccine mandate type things. The details of these various plans differ from place to place depending on where you're looking, but they generally all require providing proof of vaccination before you can go into certain businesses or eat at a restaurant or go to the gym or etc. Right?
Right.
New York has gone the furthest, I believe, with this. At least in America, they've gone the furthest. What is there anything specific about the kind of the New York plan that's different than any of the other ones?
So New York is the first locality and/or state to roll it out, and there are other cities and other places that are not far behind. But to me, what stands out in the New York one is uh, how many places are going to be off limits to people who are not vaccinated.
Right.
Like you said, I mean, we're talking any sort of dining establishment. We're talking any sort of indoor fitness facility. We're talking any sort of uh, entertainment, venue. So there's just so many problems with this because one of the things that we know is that for for people who are obese or who have diabetes or other health ailments, they're they're put in greater jeopardy of adverse COVID-19 implications. Yet at the same time, you've got the city of New York saying, "Hey, if you don't have if you don't have a vaccine, you can't even come in and exercise."
Mm.
So I mean, there are just so many contradictions and issues with this.
Yeah, no doubt. It's definitely far-reaching. What is it? What is it called? It's like the key to New York or something like
Yeah,
that.
the Excellus surpass.
So it's like, yeah, Excelsior Pass. I think that was kind of the originator of this, but then I think the newest thing is called the Key to New York or something along those lines. And yeah, you need like an app. All of your medical information regarding the vaccine needs to be put through the Excelsior program onto this app, the Key to New York, right? And then you need to be able to show that, or I don't know if you have to like scan it or something. I'm not entirely sure what the details are, but I know that this plan in New York kind of goes the furthest than some of the other ones that are being proposed.
Right.
Um, but it definitely is a government manufactured barrier to entry, like
Ex-
at the
ex-
simplest
ex-
form.
Exactly. And even worse, you also have to show government ID as well.
Oh, is that
So,
right?
yeah, so remember, these are the people that are saying if you are if you are told that you have to show government ID to vote, then that's racist. However, if you want to get into almost like any building in New York
Right.
City, you have to show government ID, but that's not racist. Another thing with this is that it's not as simple as, oh, they're going to have someone standing at the door checking your vaccine card. Like you said, there's a computer system that these places are going to have to purchase.
Mm,
That alone, tens of thousands of dollars. If you're a small business, if you're a independent business, these are costs that you can't afford. But they make it just seem like, oh, that's nothing. Just somehow, some way, figure it out.
sure. Well, here, let's look at the stats. So you kind of already briefly mentioned it, but you supply here a link to, let's see. So you supply here a link that shows the actual statistics in New York City. New York City residents vaccinated by age, race, ethnicity, and sex. So when you look at it, pretty stark difference between some of them, and like you said, these like minority classes, Black and Hispanic, Latino.
Mhm.
So this policy, based on just facts and stats here, is going to disproportionately affect minority groups from being able to go into businesses, gyms, go to the theater, anything like that,
Participate in society.
participate in society based on their logic. How is that not racist?
Once again, they don't even address the elephant in the room, which is the fact that this falls under their definition of racism. But ever since the pandemic, it's almost like things are upside down. So
Mm,
they can say one thing, they can do another. It's all under the guise of COVID. We've seen so many times where they flip flop, they've contradicted themselves. Another interesting thing, and I pointed it out in the article, was that in New York, statistics show that the spread of COVID, 70% happens at home. So why
mm,
does this even matter?
sure. Yeah, so I think that this is more of like a thought experiment than anything, right? I mean, I don't think either of us believe that voter ID laws are racist. I don't
No.
think either of us believe that vaccine mandates should be required to go to the store, right? This is just purely to show that, like, their worldview directly contradicts each other. Like, this is just one of the most blatant examples of it, right?
And it's also compliance. It's also power. We're saying you have to do it, and there are no exceptions. One other thing I failed to mention earlier is there is no exceptions for religious problems, and for people who have already had coronavirus who do not need a vaccine
Oh,
because they have
sure.
natural immunity. So it's like this is a one size fits all uh, you know, policy that is ill thought out and
Yeah.
is gonna cause more harm than good.
Well, that's the government for you, right? One size fits all, top down type of mandate structure for their policy. So that doesn't surprise me too much. But you know, I I kind of warned you ahead of time, Chris, that I've got a little curveball for you for this topic. So, what do you think the left generally does when they're met with a conflicting, contradicting worldview? What do? Do they recognize it and then reconcile their problem? In your opinion, what do they do?
I'd say they double down and
That's what I was looking for. They
and
double down.
yeah, they double down and they use projection against anyone who has any qualms with their policy. So that
Sure.
they'll always try to redirect it to you.
Right, right, no doubt. So what happens? What's going to happen? If this accusation that this policy that they're propagating actually gets called racist. What are they going to do?
Oh,
This is what they're going to do. The plan has already been set. So I've got this article from the College Fix. This was also featured on Real Clear Education. It is Cornell vaccine mandate only applies to white students. So if you are a protected minority group, in this article, it goes through how you could be exempt from the Cornell vaccine mandate. So surely, once this arises, this problem that this policy that they're pushing for in New York City is going to have a disproportionate effect on minority groups, what are they going to do? They're just going to exempt them from it. So-
that wouldn't surprise me. It also wouldn't surprise me if they arbitrarily uh, go, input their penalties, which are
Mm,
1,000 for the first fine, 2,000 for the second fine, and up to 5,000 for the third fine.
right. Wow.
So we'll see if they go and universally apply those, or if those are applied in certain areas.
Right, right. Well, fantastic. So, yeah, I just wanted to talk about this article that you had written. It's a really good article. Anyone that wants to read the article in full, there will be a link to it, link to Town Hall for this article in the show notes. Chris, you write articles about various topics and get them published all over the place. Where are some places that people can go to see your work?
Well, number one is heartland.org, and you know several websites, but I always want to encourage our listeners and viewers, heartland.org, stoppingsocialism.com, and the Heartland suite of websites.
All right, fantastic. Yep, stoppingsocialism.com is the place that you can go to find basically all of our content. If you want to see more videos like this, you could always go subscribe to our channel right here on YouTube, Stopping Socialism TV. We also have different social medias. We have Instagram, we've got a Twitter account, we have a Parler account. Pretty much anywhere, if you look hard enough, you will find Stopping Socialism. But Chris, join me in saying goodbye to the listeners. Join us next time.
See you guys next time.
Bye bye bye.